be some kind of mistake. I was told that Alabama was a conservative state. Let me begin by thanking the Rock Church Choir, Sandra Whaley, Kimberly Meadows Clark, Jonathan Austin, Stephen Hoyt. And now I have a problem. I have to speak to you after you heard from Dr. Cornel West and State Senator Nina Turner. I can't follow that, but I'm thinking of leaving the stage. What can I say? Now those guys, what makes this campaign so great is that we have people like Nina Turner and Cornel West and so many other people. Senator Turner calls it heart and soul. And that's what it is. In other words, these are not professional politicians. These are people who have fought their entire life against injustice, against racism, against classism, and they are prepared to make the political revolution with you. Thank you. Before I get into the thrust of my remarks, I wanted to talk a little bit about our campaign. And as many of you know, we began this campaign about 9 months ago, and when we began, we were 50 points behind. We were 50 points behind the inevitable Democratic nominee. Well, guess what? That inevitable candidate ain't so inevitable today. Today, we are closing the gap in Iowa, the first caucus state. I think we're a little bit ahead in New Hampshire. We're doing great in Nevada, South Carolina. And you know what I think? I think we're going to do pretty well in Alabama. And here's some pretty good news. Now, polls go up and down, and this early in a campaign, they don't mean all that much. But what is interesting is the last poll just came out yesterday, had us 15 points ahead of our very good friend, Donald Trump. What this campaign is about and what the political revolution is about is what we are seeing here tonight. Is we're seeing folks coming out, beginning to stand up and to demand that we have a government that represents all of the people, not just a handful of billionaires. And all over the country, and this is amazing, not just here in Birmingham, all over the country we're seeing huge turnouts of people who are sick and tired of establishment politics, establishment economics. They want real change in the way we do business. And when I began the campaign, what people said is, they said, well, Bernie, you're an interesting guy. You comb your hair really nicely. You got that GQ look. Got all of that stuff, but what you don't have is money. And in today's day and age, as all of you know, when you run for president, you need literally hundreds of millions of dollars. That's what you need. It's a sad state of affairs, but that's true. And they said the only way you can raise that kind of money, you got to do what all the other politicians do, and that is you got to go begging to millionaires and billionaires, start a super PAC, and collect money that way. I agree. And what we said is, you know, we don't represent the billionaire class. We don't represent corporate America. We don't want their money. We're not going to take their money. We're going to do it in a different way. So what we did, and in this day and age, this is a pretty radical idea, we said, okay, we think there are a whole lot of people in this country who are sick and tired of the status quo, and we're going to ask them for money. And you know what happened, and this is amazing, and never in a million years would I have told you that we could accomplish this. Over the last 9 months, we have received 2.5 million individual contributions. That is more individual contributions than any campaign in the history of the United States of America. You know, the establishment politicians who raise money, they go to these big fancy mansions and they come away, you know, with $5 million, with $10 million. We don't do that. I am extremely proud to tell you that our average campaign donation is $27. In other words, this is a campaign of the people, by the people, and for the people. Other candidates can get money from Wall Street, get money from the drug companies, that's fine. I'll take my contributions from the working people of this country. Today, as all of you know, we celebrate the life and work of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., one of the great Americans. One of the great Americans in the history of our country, and a man, as all of you know, who did much of his work right here in Alabama. And I know that I date myself when I tell you that in August 1963, as a college student at the University of Chicago, I was there at the March on Washington. And I can remember the day in my mind's eye right this moment. It was an extraordinary day, and a day that has left a lasting impression on my life. And here is the point that I want to make about Dr. King. It is absolutely imperative that we do not do as many out there would like us to do. And what many in the media would like us to do, they say, well, Dr. King was a great man, and he lived a great life, and he accomplished a whole lot, but that's history. That's history. But what I want to tell you is that it is absolutely imperative that we see his life not as a museum piece, something simply to be looked at, to be studied, to be appreciated, to be kept on a shelf. To truly honor the life of Dr. King, we must fight to carry out his radical and bold vision for America. And his vision was of a nation in which we not only end all forms of institutional racism and bigotry, but a nation in which all of us, black and white and Latino, Asian American, Native American, all of us come together to create a country which provides economic, social, and environmental justice for all. Now, there are some in the media who will tell you, well, King was a great man. Look at all that he did to end segregation, which was extraordinary. Look at the role that he played in getting the Voting Rights Act passed, bringing democracy to the South. Extraordinary. But don't let anybody tell you that that's all that he was. His genius, his courage, is that he kept growing and growing and growing. And he saw the relationship between racism and economics and war. That was his courage. Let us not forget what Dr. King was doing when he was assassinated in Memphis, Tennessee. You all know that. He was not down there just to do a quote-unquote civil rights demonstration. He was there to stand with some of the most lowest paid, exploited workers in America, the garbage collectors, the sanitation people in Memphis. These people had low wages, they had terrible working conditions, they were unionized, they were trying to fight back, and he went down there and he said, I am going to stand with the sanitation workers in Memphis, Tennessee, because I believe that every worker in America, including sanitation workers, deserve decent wages and decent benefits. And this is what he said. This is what he said. And he said, and I quote, "Our struggle for genuine equality, which means economic equality, for we know that it isn't enough to integrate lunch counters. What does it profit a man to be able to eat at an integrated lunch counter if he doesn't earn enough money to buy a hamburger and a cup of coffee?" And what he said then is true today, perhaps even truer. What does it mean if you can go to a university, but you can't afford to go to that university? What does it mean if you can get into the hospital, but you come out bankrupt? Now, the good news is that much has changed since Dr. King left us. Yes, we have broken down many of the formal segregationist barriers that used to exist. We should be proud of that. We should be proud. And I know that not everybody in Alabama is proud, but I am proud that we have elected a president based not on the color of his skin, but by his ideas. So the good news is that, yeah, in many areas we have made progress in creating a less discriminatory society regarding race, regarding gender, regarding sexual orientation. We should be proud of that. But the bad news is that 47 million Americans continue to live in poverty. We have the highest rate of childhood poverty of almost any major country on earth. 29 million Americans today have no health insurance and more are underinsured, and we have more income and wealth inequality than any other wealthy nation on earth. The good news is that we have made real economic progress since the departure of George W. Bush. Now, I know, when we deal with our Republican friends, we should be sympathetic because they suffer from a very serious illness called amnesia. So be nice to them. And they just can't, their long-term memory is shot. So they have forgotten where we were 7 years ago. They forgot that we were losing 800,000 jobs a month. They forgot that we were running up a $1.4 trillion deficit, highest in American history. And oh yes, it just skipped their mind that the world's financial system was on the verge of collapse. Other than that, we were doing pretty good.